This is the Unstarving Musician podcast. I'm your host, Robonzo. The podcast features conversations with me, indie music artists, and industry professionals, and it's all intended to help other indie music artists be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. Welcome, chickadees. Thank you for joining me for yet another episode. It is good to be in your earbuds or on your speakers, whatever the case may be today. I hope you and yours are well. The longer this stupid pandemic rages on, the more I learn about friends and family contracting the virus. And I hate to hear this, and am just thankful that this inner circle of mine has avoided death's door, something I thought I would never say on the podcast. And for a little time perspective, I'm recording this on March 3rd, 2021, and yes, the stupid pandemic still rages on. So you stay well, stay safe, stay sane, stay kind, and of course, stay creative. If you love what I do here on the podcast, please visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the many ways that you can show your love and support for the Unstarving Musician. Again, just visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to be part of that. In this episode, Brian Wolff returns to participate in the Unstarving Musician survey, in which I ask some of the best independent musicians I know through the podcast about creativity, social media, live streaming, community building, and more. This is actually Brian's third appearance on the podcast, and I have a fourth interview with him in the can, so to speak. That interview will drop in late April, early May. He is a founding member of the Austin-based rock band Fair City Fire, but he has turned solo artist. He also has a new podcast called Greetings from Wherever, in which he interviews creatives about their creative endeavors. I checked it out recently, and it's quite good. Brian is a natural. He had a little podcast experience, or has a little podcast experience, from time he spent with his pals from Fair City Fire. But this one, Greetings from Wherever, is just him and his guests. He's quite good as an interviewer and host. So I encourage you to check it out, which you can do on any of the audio platforms where podcasts can be found. Or at least most of them, right? And you'll even be able to hear me on an upcoming episode of Greetings from Wherever. Brian talked to me about the various creative things I'm into on his podcast for an upcoming episode. Hope you'll check that out. You can also find out about Brian's music and other things he does on Patreon at Brian Wolff Music. There will be a link in the show notes to that. So without further ado, here's me asking Brian Wolff a bunch of survey questions. Enjoy. This first one's going to be kind of weird because of COVID, but just sort of think about it however you want. But what do you think the number one reason is that other musicians struggle to get good gigs?
Just in general, or like in these times?
In general. Or both, if you think it's applicable.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I mean, there's definitely, a lot of things at play, but I think, a big thing that I've seen with musicians is maybe them counting themselves out of gigs and not even applying because they're just like, oh, they won't take me, or like, I don't fit at that place or whatever. But the thing is, if you just go for it, you might get that yes, and I think that's a big thing is taking a chance on yourself and being willing to hear no, taking that risk is really important, stepping out there.
Was starting locally, I guess talking about, well, we can talk about either pre or during Fair City Fire, but was starting locally an important approach to building your fan base?
I think so. I think if for nothing else, it helped us kind of, define that relationship between us and the crowd. I mean, just like what that's like, what kind of band we want to be, and being able to do that in our backyard consistently and have people that knew they could see us, in town pretty regularly if they wanted to come out, like, and a lot of them did. It really kind of just established the kind of groundwork for what kind of band we were going to be, I think. And then, going outside of that, going on tour, it's like we already kind of had that in place because we did all that work here in Austin.
Oh, wow. It was almost a dress rehearsal for getting in front of people you didn't know, right?
Yeah, there's definitely some of that for sure. And, it's kind of interesting because that initial like support of people that know you, it's like you don't want to like fall in love with that too much either, because even if you are satisfied with the numbers of people that are coming to the show, it's like if you're just relying on friends to come out and see your band or whatever, it's like that stuff is going to dry up, especially if you're playing a lot. It's like you have to really work on being a kind of band that, you'd hope that people would come in the room and not know who you are and just be like, well, I like these guys. I want to see them again. And it doesn't matter that I don't know them. I think that's super important, is to be sort of as undeniable as you can be, just go in there prepared and ready to just rip it up.
That's good. I like it. Do you use, I don't know if you followed any of the articles I was writing about, or the article I was writing about collaboration apps, kind of the new breed of collaboration apps, but I was curious to know if you've used anything in that genre, and in that, by that genre, I mean the types that let you actually collaborate with musicians that you don't yet know, and or also with fans who happen to be musicians too, and help and bringing even fans into the creative process. Have you experimented with that? And if not, have you seen any of those apps?
I haven't. I can't actually recall if it was something that you wrote that I read. It probably was. But I definitely came across a few apps like that. I can't remember the name of them, but I haven't used them myself. I've always, for better or worse, really looked at songwriting as just a solo thing that I do on my own. With the band, when it's a Fair City Fire song, it does get a little collaborative, but even with that, we're not like, open. We never really opened it up to outsiders to come in and help us write. It's not that I'm against that idea. It's just kind of how we've always done that, and how I do that personally.
And it's you're not alone.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Do you guys, or do you or does the band use any community building platform that allows for subscription-based patronage community building? Like, for instance, Patreon or Bandcamp or something like that?
I do now. During, kind of with all this extra time with, kind of the quarantine and stuff going on this year, I know I'm not planning on playing any public shows anytime soon in person, at least. And so, it kind of gave me time to explore different options like Patreon. And I have a Patreon at Brian Wolff Music. It's just patreon.com/Brian Wolff Music. And I release new song videos of stuff that's not released yet, of stuff that I've been writing during this time. It's kind of, maybe rough cuts. But it's kind of an interesting thing where people get to see these songs before they're done. I mean, how often do you get to see that from a songwriter, I guess, just like kind of a look behind the scenes. You'll hear the final product of like what a team of people put together to have you hear for the first time. But, to hear like maybe the original intent of the song before it gets passed to a producer or passed to like a studio or anything like that, I think is a really unique experience. And people seem to be really enjoying it. I think I've got like 20 patrons there now, and I really appreciate them supporting. It's still pretty new, so it's hopefully gonna just keep growing and growing. And it's been, if for nothing else, it's been an excellent way to like figure out a new thing and keep myself busy.
Nice. I like that. It's cool. It's funny thinking about doing this as a podcast episode because I'm sitting here typing and audio would go great, but doing the video would have to be, well, maybe a little editing would work. Yeah. Do you give, or have you given music lessons in the past? And if yes, have you done any online?
I haven't done any online. I taught one kid through the program Kids in a New Groove. It was a volunteer program here in Austin. It's still around. But yeah, I taught a kid in foster care how to play guitar. He was about 14 when we met. I think he turned 15 in the year that I was teaching him. So it was interesting because it's like a mentorship and also teaching music at the same time. So it's not the direct like we're gonna hit these certain goals with learning music and stuff. It's more of like a hey, let's connect with each other, and I want to provide a good adult relationship for you, but also like teach you some music along the way. So it's not necessarily traditional music lessons, but it is that. That's really my only experience with it, and that was life altering for sure in a lot of ways, and something I think I would do professionally someday. I'm not quite ready for that at the moment, but I'm open to it in the future for sure.
Cool. What you can think when I ask you current, when I use the word current, you can think about, given our current situation, you can think about how it's been done in the past or what you're thinking about doing in the future if it helps. But what is your current marketing strategy for new releases?
Well, that's interesting because currently Fair City Fire is on hiatus, so it's been interesting. A couple of the guys, to be frank, just sort of decided that they wanted to kind of move on from it. Nothing personal, nothing dramatic to write about. It's just kind of like we're at a certain point in our lives when we want to kind of pursue other things. So that leaves Joe and I, the drummer, and I, to kind of figure out what we want to do with this thing we've worked on so much for 6 years on. And for now, it's like, let's figure it out when COVID's over, I think. Let's figure out how we feel about it and stuff. But, I think for me, it's opened this opportunity of something I've been wanting to explore anyways, of really presenting myself as a solo artist. So, now the stuff I put out is under my name, Brian Wolff. And it's been so far, it's been a lot of YouTube videos and stuff on Patreon that's exclusive. But my plan is in the spring to start really releasing kind of professionally recorded stuff. The whole nine, like Spotify, really focus on like getting on playlists and stuff like that. It's been interesting kind of on that note.
This episode is powered by Bandzoogle, the most effective platform for musicians and bands to build their website and manage direct-to-fan marketing and sales. Powering over 55,000 websites, Bandzoogle features powerful design options, a commission-free store to sell merch, music, and tickets, a built-in mailing list tool, detailed fan data, integrations with social networks, and more. Plans start at just $8.29 a month, which includes a free custom domain name. You, indie musician, can try it out for free at bandzoogle.com. And you can use the promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO, to get 15% off your first year of any plan. Again, that's bandzoogle.com, promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO. Back to my conversation with Brian Wolff.
A person I'm connected with in Austin basically asked me, because she figured I had some time on my hands. She asked me, "Hey, would you help me with my online music promotion?" Knowing that I've done that so much, and she's a great songwriter. She's been doing it a long time. She hates that part of the game, So
wow.
For her, it's sort of, hey, like, I know you know how to do this and you're a pretty organized person. Can you help me with this stuff? So it's been interesting because it's given me a chance to learn how Spotify playlists work, how certain metrics work, what they look at, kind of doing the research on something that I don't have that personal connection with. Like this wasn't my baby, So it's like, we kind of talked about rejection earlier and stuff. It's like, I'm not afraid to submit this to everybody because like I'm gonna get those rejection emails and it doesn't bother it's not like I wrote this thing or so it's given me a chance to really
Experience rejection on someone else's behalf.
Right. And it's not like I have to forward these emails to her, it's like, it's, but the thing is, it's a numbers game in a lot of ways is what I'm learning is like, get it to everybody and you're going to get some yeses and a lot of no's. But, the idea with it seems to be that I'm kind of learning is like, you kind of get that one yes, and then hopefully you start getting more yeses after that. And it just sort of grows. Which, is what I'm starting to see now. We've gotten the first couple yeses on playlists, which is awesome on her music. And, we're really, I'm really hoping to kind of see that sort of grow, especially as she's starting to put out new music in the next month. So I'm kind of helping her with her plan on that and stuff. So
cool. I just, before I called you, I got off a webinar about release strategy. And one of the things that really piqued my interest was the playlist marketing, for the sake of getting more exposure. So yeah, well, I'd love to talk to you about that again sometime at greater length. That'd be cool.
For sure. Definitely.
I don't remember. We may have talked about this in the past, but have you used PR before, like PR professional of any sort for any of the work you've done?
We haven't really done that. It's something I wonder if maybe we should have. I'm not sure. It's tough for me to know, if we're going to spend that kind of money on PR as a band. It's like, how do you differentiate? And there's probably research I could do on this, but how do you differentiate the people that are just going to take your money and do almost nothing with it that you couldn't do on your own? And how many people have those real connections in place that can get you where you need to be. And it's just tough to know. And it's, I think we've gotten some emails about it in the past. And, the first red flag for me that kind of turned me off about all of it, I think was like, pay this submission fee and we'll consider, being your PR company. It's like, if you're interested in my stuff, then I shouldn't be paying you for you to consider, it's just a weird world. And I haven't looked into it enough to know the difference, I guess, of like wasting your money or like hiring someone for good work.
Yeah. I'm guessing that if you really have the whole release strategy kind of, if you understand it, not that you necessarily have it all down, the best thing to do for that is to find out who your peers have used, who they've liked, and try to develop a relationship with somebody based on that. And probably the best thing I heard from a PR professional recently was that, this individual looked for people that she could get genuine excitement from them about what they were working on, because she could take that excitement into her world of contacts. So I guess the point of sharing that little last part is, the whole relationship building thing with a PR person to figure out if they're the right one or not. But, I think the track record of a referral is probably the most important thing.
That's probably true. Yeah. And also, like you said, just, loving what you do. I think that's important for so many reasons, like,
right.
But that's a good one. I didn't really even think about is like a good PR person is probably only going to be interested in you if it just doesn't seem like bullshit, it seems like you're really into it,
Well, she said they can't develop a story for us, right? They need something from us to have the story that they can run with. And when we're enthused about it, the story's a lot more fun for them. It's a lot more doable for them, to run with.
Yeah, for sure.
I know the answer to, I know if I were asking you this yes or no, it would be a resounding yes, but how specifically has social media helped you get your work out into the world?
Well, I'll say, especially this year, I think I've utilized it a lot more. I've been putting out different kinds of content. And the thing that I love about social media this year that I'm realizing that I've missed out on for so many years is, I've been doing these live streams on Wednesday nights. And it's just me and a guitar in the room that you're seeing on this screen right now. Real simple stuff, nothing crazy. I've got like an audio interface and, a ring light, and that's about it. Like, we're not talking big production value or anything. I don't have to lug my equipment anywhere. It's wonderful. But the thing is like, if I go out and lug my gear to a bar, yes, I'm going to get like paid for that, which is great. But the thing is, I'm not going to have like 100 people from New York watching me. Live streaming from Texas, like, you can do that. And that's the thing that I found that's been very interesting is I look at my metrics afterwards and I'm getting most of my plays from outside of Austin. Like, it's wild to me, and that tells me, and I've been really happy with the numbers in general. So like, there are people in Austin that are watching, which is great. Like, I really appreciate that. But I think the thing is that I've been missing out on is like all those people that support my music that don't live here that maybe could have seen me play with my band once a year on tour. And if they happen to have that night off, if they happen to have the money to go out at that time, like there's so many factors of that. But like now, they can just log on Wednesday night and watch me play and hear the stuff I've been writing and, whatever I want to ramble about. I've got the microphone. You can just go watch something else if you don't like what I'm talking about.
Nice. Okay, sadly, I have to get ready for my next one, but you're going to get a copy of the form I was actually using. So if you care to see, you can see what I was typing in. But there's some other questions at the end of it. Not many, but
Okay.
if you want to chime in on any of them, feel free. We should definitely have a follow-up conversation. Maybe we can just do it in the form of the traditional podcast thing if you're up for it. And,
that'd be great.
Okay,
Definitely
I'll send you one of those schedule links and we'll do it, and you'll have an episode in the new year when it publishes. So thank you for spending time with me. Also, I look forward to checking out the new stuff that you've been doing that just because we haven't been connected, I haven't noticed. So I'm really glad that we did this.
I'll send you some links for sure, man. Thank you, dude.
Right, thanks, dude. Take care.
All right.
Talk to you soon.
See ya.
I love talking to that guy. He's great. Can't wait to see him again next time I go to Austin. One day soon. Hey, please check out my new single, On Top of the World, available wherever you get your music, including my website, robonzo.com. You can also find a new lyric video on robonzo.com. On Top of the World was released just this past January 8th, 2021, and, well, I'm excited about it. Again, the song is On Top of the World. Find it wherever you get your music or at robonzo.com, where you can also see the new lyric video. Thanks for your support, and I hope you dig it. Thanks again for listening. If you loved this episode, please subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast/audio platform. It'll help you stay on top of the latest episodes and help other indie musicians and indie music fans find the podcast. And if you have feedback, please go to unstarvingmusician.com to get all my contact info. You can text me, call me, email me, leave a voice message right there on that page. Just go down to the bottom of the page and you'll find everything you need to know. I really would love to hear any of your comments, suggestions, questions, whatever you've got. And you can find links to just about everything talked about in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. All right, I'm peacing out. Thank you for listening and sharing with your musician friends and fellow indie music fans. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.